Anthony Lane is here in 1993. He became the film critic for the New Yorker magazine. Laura Miller wrote in the New York Times that Lane writes prose the way Fred Astaire danced. His new book is called Nobody's Perfect. It is a collection of his writings on film, books, and other topics. I am pleased to have him at this table. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
The title comes from Some Like It Hot, doesn't it?
Of course. It's the final line of Some Like It Hot. You know, Jerry Brown, Jet Lemon in the boat, and they sort of finally, damn it all, Osgood, I'm a man. He said, nobody's perfect, you know.
But it's, having dressed as a woman all those
yeah, absolutely, all this while. And it struck me, not only have I got a piece about Billy Wilder in the book, which is a tribute to him, having this as the title, but also it became, as it were, the subject of the book the more I thought about it. The book is, as it were, the book is about the avoidance of tragedy, in a sense. It's about the fact that, you know, the fact that comedy is, it's a book devoted, in a sense, to comedy and to the way that movies and other things celebrate our imperfections.
All right,
it's all about, you know, if a fat guy falls over in the street, it's not funny. If a fat guy in the street falls over in film, it's very funny. And yeah, that's where that's where the book starts, really.
Okay. Nobody's perfect. Let me just take a look at the cover here. This is Shakespeare,
Buster Keaton. This is Shackleton's, and this is called Shackleton's ship down to the South Pole.
The ice there.
This is Godzilla, and then best of all we have Julia Roberts and next to T.S. Eliot. Now this is a meeting I would very much like to have been present at. You know, imagine the two of them. This is the opposite. Whatever fireworks may consist of, this is the opposite. This is damp squibs together. But he's looking at her in that way, which thinks, you know, what? Not just who is this, but what is this? You know, I felt if 5 minutes with him, you know, and we would never have had the poetry. You know, she would have saved. You know, she would have saved us so much bother, really.
Anthony Lane has energy, wit, taste, learning, and most signally, elegance of mind, says Martin Amis. That's almost what he said about Christopher Hitchens, isn't it?
Yeah. That's an interesting spat, isn't it? It's London still goes in for these major feuds between writers. I myself have never, to my great shame and discredit, I don't seem to have entered into any major feuds yet, but that's a good one. And it's about an important subject, you know. Amos and Hitchens are...
Hitler and Stalin is what it's
Hitler
about.
And Stalin, there's no bigger subjects. And I think it will run, and to their credit, they say they remain friends. And that they can have these intellectual differences, which in itself is quite educational, I think.
You don't have that in the United States. I don't know a great feud among people of that intellect.
Yeah, and even the Nabokov Wilson thing a long time ago became in the end a breakage of a friendship when they broke over Nabokov's translation of Pushkin. And I notice if you venture an opinion that happens to offend someone's taste, if someone's in the business themselves, they're in the media, they're used to kind of jostling opinions around, throwing opinions into the pot, it's fine. But if they're not, if they're kind of an ordinary reader in some ways, and you venture an opinion that offends their taste, they will take it very much to heart, as if their taste is something they clutch to themselves, and that to disagree with them is somehow to offend them personally. There was a time when you would watch the great movies, and movies made life worth living, you know, whether you're watching a Jean Renoir movie, or whether you're watching a great screwball comedy, you know, you came out and you felt, you know, you were gunning for action, you know, life felt better as a direct result. And now I get the feeling that movies are sort of... even amongst the very good filmmakers still operating today, it's like life makes movies worth living.
Well, you make this point that's interesting in this book. If you look at Ridley Scott, who made Black Hawk Down, and you look at Ridley Scott, who made that early movie, Alien, and you suggest that there's no progress.
No, well, if anything, there's a decline. I mean, I enjoyed Black Hawk Down, but all I think it was extremely more violent perhaps than it needed to be, but it felt very frantic. I know the subject is frantic, but that's no reason to make a frantic work of art about it all. It's possible to make a very calm work of art about a very frantic subject. But it feels that, I don't know whether this is his choice or whether there are pressures now coming from the studios, but everything is very hasty, there's no downtime. If you think about Alien, all the downtime, all the kind of, you know, the long lunch before John Hurt explodes, you know, these are the things, or Sigourney Weaver moving around the craft very slowly. The build-up was so strong. You hardly saw the monster at all. The guy who'd created the monster complained to Scott. He said, look, you don't see enough of my monster. And Scott said, exactly, you know, it's the old haunted house thing. And I do feel that in a way it goes beyond this. If you look at a director like Scorsese, if the great American directors now, you know, Scorsese and Woody Allen and Tarantino, who's younger and so forth, if we knew who he was, there is that slight sort of hothouse air to their movies, you know, that they have decided that movies are a better place to live than real life. When I watched Taxi Driver or I watched Annie Hall, I genuinely felt there was fresh air coming in, you know, there was life, you know, not just because they go to the planetarium at Annie Hall and so forth and make, you know, intergalactic love on the lunar surface, as Woody says. But I mean, you felt that these were people who had lives that were feeding back into the films. And now I watched a Scorsese movie. I haven't seen the new one yet. I'm very much looking forward to it. But it's as if Gangs of New York. But his last few films, they're wonderful and, I mean, brilliant in every conceivable technical way. But they feel as if his idea of suffering, as Woody Allen's idea of comedy, is being learnt from films now, and from old films, and from his own experiences on film.
Saying that you think Woody has not made the kind of films he used to make.
I want to say to him, you know, get out on the street, you know, get alive slightly, because it's. I feel it's not as if he's reporting back from the front lines of experience, be they the front lines of the sex war, or in Scorsese's case, from the front lines of, you know, if you watch
Urban Living,
you know, or people living, and if you watch Bringing Out the Dead, which was Scorsese's last movie about medics and so forth. It could have been set in New York in 1970. You want to think it's still a hellhole.
Okay, but let me turn then and say, I mean, those are to read you is to believe that you think they have not been doing their best work.
Well, no, I think that's true. On the other hand, who are we to complain? You know, I mean, my wife said to me, you know, stop complaining. She said, look, I know, Francis Ford Coppola hasn't produced anything, but look, he made The Godfather, he made The Conversation, he made Apocalypse Now. That's not bad for a life. Not everybody can be Rembrandt, okay? Not everybody can have the great spirited youth and the great old wintry, you know, age.
Speaking of directors, then, if you want to give the highest marks to someone who has, over the period of time, consistently set a high standard, does Steven Spielberg reach that? Well, more than anyone else?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, isn't that odd? He somehow still feels like a young man. I know he's middle-aged now, but I mean, he has that great gift which Robert Altman also has, and it's a matter of it's good luck from else. We kind of forget the glitches in Spielberg. We forget Always and Hook and things. We remember the big movies, the big successes, and you know, AI was this great, fascinating failure. I think some people loved it. I didn't get it at all. It came alive in only very perfunctory ways,
and it should have been masterful because it's a subject that he clearly had great passion for.
Whereas I thought Minority Report was a good, fun genre movie. I thought, and I thought, yeah, he's back, he's firing again, you know. And there were those little moments. He can do the, you know, the funny / scary thing better than anybody else still. And who knows what he'll do in old age. You know, if he ever, you know, I can't imagine Spielberg going old. I sort of feel he'll be kind of this perpetual boy wonder. And he's, you know, he made the great films about
with all of the curiosity and all of the enthusiasm of his youth.
Absolutely, that will never go. Plainly, that will never go.
Let me take you back to 1993. So Tina Brown is then the editor of New Yorker magazine. She wants to hire you. She invites you to lunch. She's going to hire you as the film critic for the New Yorker. What was your charge? What did she say? I want you to do.
Well, in a sense, it's a simple job, in that it has a regular beat, and I couldn't do a job that doesn't have a regular beat. You know, I have to have the ground base, and the ground base is you see a movie.
So you couldn't be Adam Gopnik. You couldn't just go off in search of a subject that you want to write about.
I can't do carte blanche. You know, I couldn't do what Adam does.
No, why couldn't
I envy him more than I can say for this ability. I have to be given an absolute task, and I go for it on deadline. And I do a movie movie review every other week with David Denby. Going alternate weeks, and then in my off weeks I write about books or photography or things. Those, to an extent, I slightly choose. I'm a complete ambulance chaser. If someone dies or it's their 100th anniversary, I'll say, hey, Hitchcock was born 100 years ago. Let's have a big Hitchcock piece, you know. Because the second half of the book is books and so forth, and pieces about directors. People who are beyond the reach of fashion. Movies are very hot. They're conceived in heat, they're sold in heat, they're watched in this kind of great warm, you know, spirited place, and people could chatter about them all the time, even before they've seen them. And then the people in the second half of the book, you know, whatever you say about T.S. Eliot, he's not hot, you know. He was cold when he was alive, and he's colder now. And that seems to me, it's like a salve, it's like a refuge from movies, to go into these, you know, these calm artists, the stand-back guys.